Blood dripped from Lyra's torn dress as she stumbled through the dark forest, her bare feet slipping on wet leaves. Every breath burned in her chest, but she couldn't stop running. Marcus's voice still echoed in her head, the cold way he'd said, "You're worthless to me now," before his claws found her throat. She pressed her hand against the deep scratches on her neck. Fresh blood seeped between her fingers. The mate bond that had once felt like salvation now felt like poison in her veins. How had she been so wrong about him? Her legs gave out near a massive oak tree. She collapsed onto her knees. The forest spun around her, shadows blurring together. She didn't even know where she was anymore, just somewhere far from Marcus and his pack. Far from the man who was supposed to love and protect her. "Please?" she whispered to no one, her voice barely carried above the wind. "Just let me disappear." Heavy footsteps approached through the underbrush. Lyra's heart hammered against her ribs as she tried to crawl behind the tree. Her body wouldn't obey. She was too weak, too broken. If Marcus had followed her, this was how she would die. A massive figure emerged from the darkness. Lyra's breath caught. Even in her dazed state, she recognized the man standing over her, Alpha King Daemon, the most feared leader in the region. His reputation preceded him everywhere, ruthless in battle, cold as winter, completely without mercy. She waited for him to finish what Marcus had started. Instead, Daemon dropped to one knee beside her. His dark eyes scanned her injuries. When he spoke, his voice carried a low rumble that made the air itself seem to vibrate. "What happened to you?" His voice was gentler than she'd expected. Still, Lyra flinched away from him. Every instinct screamed that an alpha this powerful would only hurt her more. "Please don't," she managed to say, her words slurred together. I can't take any more." Something shifted in Daemon's expression. His jaw tightened. She caught the flash of canines as his control wavered for just a moment. Then he held his hands up, palms open. "I'm not going to hurt you, but you're bleeding badly. If you stay out here, you'll die." Lyra wanted to tell him that dying might be easier. The words wouldn't come. Dark spots danced across her vision. She felt herself falling forward. Strong arms caught her before she hit the ground. Daemon's touch was careful, almost hesitant, as he lifted her against his chest. His heartbeat was steady beneath her cheek. The scent of pine and something uniquely him filled her nose. The last thing Lyra remembered was the way his arms tightened protectively around her before everything went black. Lyra woke to the smell of antiseptic and clean sheets. Panic shot through her as she tried to sit up. Gentle hands pressed her back down onto the mattress. "Easy," a woman's voice said. "You're safe. You're in the medical wing of the Moonstone Pack." The pack doctor was an older woman with kind eyes and steady hands. She was cleaning the wounds on Lyra's arms with careful precision. Lyra's throat felt raw as she looked around the small, bright room. Everything was too clean, too peaceful. It felt like a trap. Sunlight streamed through windows that had no bars. The door stood slightly ajar. No locks, no guards. After 3 years with Marcus, the absence of restraints felt more dangerous than their presence. "Where is he?" Lyra asked. Her voice came out as a croak. "Alpha Daemon? He's been checking on you every hour. Hasn't slept since he brought you in 2 days ago." 2 days. Lyra's stomach clenched. "I need to leave. I can't stay here." "Child, you nearly died from blood loss." The doctor's face darkened as she examined the claw marks on Lyra's neck. "And these injuries? What kind of monster did this to you?" Before Lyra could answer, the door opened. Daemon walked in, and she felt that same strange recognition she'd experienced in the forest. He looked exhausted, his usually perfect hair disheveled, dark circles under his eyes. When he saw that Lyra was awake, relief flooded his features. "How are you feeling?" he asked. He stayed near the door, as if he sensed her fear. "Like I need to go. Lyra tried to swing her legs over the side of the bed. Dizziness hit her immediately. The room tilted sideways. Damon stepped forward instinctively, then caught himself. His hands hovered in the air between them for a moment, before he pulled them back. "You're not a prisoner here, but you're also in no condition to travel." "You don't understand," Lyra's voice cracked. "He'll come looking for me. When he finds out I'm here, he'll—" "Who?" Damon's tone went deadly quiet. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. "Who did this to you?" Lyra met his eyes and saw something that confused her, genuine anger on her behalf. She'd never seen that before, not from any alpha. They either wanted to use her or ignored her completely. "Marcus Blackwood," she whispered. "My mate." The words hung in the air like a physical thing. Damon's hands clenched into fists at his sides. Lyra caught a glimpse of the feared alpha king everyone talked about. The predator barely contained beneath civilized skin. "Your mate tried to kill you," he said. His voice was carefully controlled, but she could hear the fury underneath. Not the first time. The words slipped out before Lyra could stop them. Just the first time he actually meant it. The doctor made a small, horrified sound. She muttered something about getting more supplies and hurried from the room. Now Lyra was alone with the most dangerous alpha in the territory, and she'd just admitted how pathetic she was. But instead of looking disgusted, Damon pulled a chair close to her bed. He sat down slowly, his movements deliberate and non-threatening. "Tell me what happened. Why do you care?" The question came out harsher than Lyra intended. "I'm nobody, just another broken wolf." "You're not nobody." Damon's response was immediate and fierce. The words hit her like a physical blow. "And you're under my protection now." Something warm unfurled in Lyra's chest at his words. She pushed it down. She couldn't afford to trust anyone, especially not an alpha with this much power. "Marcus has been difficult for months," she said carefully. "Ever since he didn't get the territory expansion he wanted. He takes his frustrations out on me." "That's not what mates do." Damon's jaw was tight with controlled rage. "That's what cowards do." Lyra stared at him in surprise. She'd grown so used to people making excuses for Marcus, telling her she must have done something to deserve it, that it was normal, that all alphas had tempers. "2 nights ago he lost a major business deal," she continued. The words felt like glass in her throat. "He came home drunk and angrier than I'd ever seen him. Started saying I was bad luck, that everything went wrong because I was weak and useless." Her fingers went to the bandages on her throat. "Then he decided to solve the problem permanently." Damon was completely still, but Lyra could feel the fury radiating off him in waves that made her wolf whimper and cower. When he spoke, his voice was barely human. He tried to kill his own mate because he lost a business deal. "I fought back," Lyra said quickly. She didn't want him to think she was completely helpless. "Managed to get away while he was shifting, but I don't know how long my head start will last." "It doesn't matter." Damon leaned forward. His dark eyes were intense, burning with something that made her breath catch. "Marcus Blackwood will never touch you again. I give you my word." The certainty in his voice made something crack open inside Lyra's chest. She wanted so desperately to believe him. But trusting alphas had nearly gotten her killed. "Why?" she asked. Her voice came out small and broken. "Why would you risk a conflict with another pack for someone like me?" Damon was quiet for a long moment. He studied her face like he was trying to solve a puzzle. When he finally answered, he sounded almost confused. "I don't know. When I found you in those woods, bleeding and broken." He ran a hand through his hair. "Something inside me just knew I had to protect you. I've never felt anything like it." Lyra's heart skipped a beat. The way he was looking at her, the protective instinct he couldn't explain. It felt familiar and terrifying at the same time. Like recognition. Like fate. "I should go," she said again, but with less conviction this time. "Where?" Damon asked gently. "Where would you go that Marcus couldn't find you?" Lyra realized she didn't have an answer. She'd been running on pure survival instinct, with no plan beyond getting away. Now, sitting in this clean, safe room with an alpha who actually seemed to care if she lived or died, She felt more lost than ever. "I don't know," she admitted. "Then stay," Damon said. "At least until you're healed. Let me keep you safe." The offer hung in the air between them, full of possibility and danger. Lyra wanted to say yes more than she'd wanted anything in years, but fear held her back like chains around her chest. "What if I bring trouble to your pack?" she asked. "Then we'll handle it." Damon's smile was sharp and deadly. "Trust me, Marcus Blackwood is the one who should be worried about trouble." For the first time in 3 years, Lyra felt something that might have been hope. Lyra was just beginning to believe she might actually be safe when Marcus arrived. She was sitting by the window in her room 3 days later, watching pack members go about their daily routines. Children played in the courtyard. Adults worked and laughed together. It was everything she'd forgotten a pack could be, family instead of prison. The commotion started slowly. Raised voices from the courtyard below, the sound of boots on stone. Her blood turned to ice when she heard that familiar, commanding tone cutting through the air. "I'm here for what belongs to me." Her hands started shaking so badly she nearly dropped the cup of tea she'd been holding. Marcus was here. He'd found her. The fragile piece she'd built over 3 days crumbled like paper. A soft knock at her door made her jump. It was just Sarah, one of the pack's healers who'd been checking on her. The woman's face was carefully neutral, but Lyra could see the tension in her shoulders. "The Alpha King wants to see you in the main hall," Sarah said gently. "But only if you feel up to it. He said you could stay here if you preferred." Lyra's first instinct was to hide, to curl up in the corner and pretend this wasn't happening. But something had changed in her during these 3 days of safety. She'd started to remember who she used to be before Marcus broke her down piece by piece. "No," she said. She stood on unsteady legs. "I need to face this." The walk to the main hall felt endless. Her heart hammered against her ribs with each step. But when she finally stepped through the doors, she wasn't alone. Damon was there, positioned between her and Marcus like a living shield. The protective stance he'd taken made her chest tight, with emotions she wasn't ready to name. Marcus looked exactly the same. Tall, dark-haired, handsome, in a way that had once made her heart race. Now it just made her sick. His pale blue eyes found hers immediately. His smile was all sharp edges and cruelty, barely contained. "There you are, darling," he said, like she'd simply wandered off during a shopping trip. "You've caused quite a stir, running off like that. But playtime's over. It's time to come home." The casual dismissal in his voice, the way he talked about her near-death experience like it was a tantrum, sent rage flooding through her system. "She's not going anywhere with you." Damon's voice was deadly quiet, the kind of quiet that came before violence. Marcus's attention shifted to the Alpha King. Lyra could practically see him calculating, measuring. She knew that look. Marcus was always looking for angles, for weaknesses he could exploit. "With all due respect, Your Majesty," Marcus said. His tone was just mocking enough to be insulting while technically remaining polite. "This is a private matter between mates. Lyra belongs to me." The word "belongs" hit Lyra like a physical blow. She'd heard it so many times, had it drilled into her head until she almost believed it. But hearing it now, in this place where she'd been treated like a person instead of property, she felt something crack inside her. "She belongs to herself," Damon said. The fury in his voice made the air itself feel dangerous. "And she's under my protection," Marcus laughed. The sound was like nails on glass, grating against Lyra's nerves. "Your protection? That's rich. What exactly has she told you to earn such loyalty?" "Whatever sob story she's spun, I assure you." "Don't." The word came out of Lyra's mouth before she could stop it. Sharp and clear. Both alphas turned to look at her, and she felt her knees wobble under the attention. But she forced herself to keep talking. "Don't you dare try to rewrite what happened." Marcus's expression shifted, becoming the cold, calculating look she knew meant danger. "Lyra, sweetheart, you're clearly not thinking straight. You've been through trauma. Let me take you home where you can recover properly." The fake concern in his voice made her stomach turn. This was Marcus at his most dangerous, when he pretended to care while sliding the knife between her ribs. "The only trauma I need to recover from is you," she said. Her voice got stronger with each word. She could feel Damon's presence beside her, solid and reassuring, giving her courage she didn't know she still possessed. Marcus's mask slipped, just for a second, letting his real fury show through. "You're my mate, Lyra, my property. These people can't keep you from me forever." "Actually, they can." Lyra stepped forward, putting herself closer to Damon and further from the man who tried to kill her. "I reject you, Marcus Blackwood. I reject you as my mate, and I claim sanctuary with the Silver Moon Pack." The formal words hung in the air like a challenge. Marcus went completely still. His face twisted with rage that made him look like a stranger. "You can't reject me," he snarled, dropping all pretense of civility. "You're nothing without me. You're weak, pathetic, useless. She's worth 10 of you." Damon moved faster than Lyra's eyes could track, suddenly inches from Marcus's face. The Alpha King's control was hanging by a thread, power radiating off him in waves that made everyone in the room take an unconscious step back. "And if you ever speak to her like that again, I'll rip your throat out." For a moment, Lyra thought Marcus might actually challenge him. The tension in the room was suffocating. Two alpha wolves on the verge of violence. But Marcus wasn't stupid. He was outmatched and outnumbered, and he knew it. He stepped back, smoothing his expression into something more civilized. But his eyes promised retribution. "This isn't over," he said, looking directly at Lyra. "You can't hide behind him forever, and when you come crawling back, and you will, don't expect me to be as forgiving as I've been." "Get out," Damon said. "Now, before I change my mind about letting you leave in one piece." Marcus left, but his parting look made Lyra's skin crawl. She knew that expression. He wasn't giving up. He was planning. The next few weeks passed in a strange kind of peace. Lyra threw herself into helping around the pack house, needing to feel useful, needed. She found herself drawn to the kitchen, where the head cook, an older woman named Elena, welcomed her with warm smiles and patient instruction. There was something healing about the simple rhythm of chopping vegetables and stirring pots. The repetitive motions kept her hands busy and her mind occupied. The warm smells of bread baking and soup simmering reminded her of childhood, of safety. Slowly, she began to feel like she might actually have a place here. Damon found her there most evenings, appearing in the doorway like he just happened to be passing by. They'd fallen into an easy routine. He'd help with whatever she was working on, and they'd talk about small, safe things. Pack business, the weather, anything that didn't touch on the complicated feelings growing between them. "You don't have to keep checking on me," Lyra said one evening as he settled beside her to help shell peas. But there was no real protest in her voice. She'd started looking forward to these quiet moments together, the way he made her feel normal, human. "Maybe I like the company," Damon replied. His shoulder brushed hers as he reached for another pod. The casual contact sent warmth spiraling through her chest. "The mighty Alpha King likes hanging out in the kitchen?" she teased, surprised at her own boldness. "The mighty Alpha King likes hanging out with you," he said quietly. The honesty in his voice made her heart skip. They worked in comfortable silence after that, but Lyra was hyper-aware of every brush of his fingers against hers, every shared smile, every moment when their eyes met and held just a second too long. She was falling for him. Had been since that first night when he'd promised to keep her safe. The realization terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. But her newfound peace shattered the night the nightmares came back. She woke, gasping, Marcus's voice echoing in her ears. The phantom pain of his hands around her throat made her claw at her neck. The room felt too small, too dark. She couldn't catch her breath. In the dream, she'd been back in their house. Marcus standing over her with those cold eyes, telling her she was worthless, that no one would ever want her, that she belonged to him forever, whether she lived or died. A soft knock at her door made her freeze. "Lyra, are you all right?" Damon's voice, concerned and gentle. She wanted to tell him yes, to send him away and pretend she was fine. Instead, she found herself opening the door, not caring that she was shaking or that her face was streaked with tears. Damon took one look at her and stepped inside, pulling her into his arms without hesitation. She collapsed against his chest, breathing in his familiar scent, letting his solid presence chase away the lingering terror. "Bad dream?" he asked. His hand stroked her hair with careful gentleness. "He was here," she whispered. "In the dream. He said I couldn't run forever." Damon's arms tightened around her. "It was just a dream. You're safe." But even as he said it, Lyra could see the worry in his eyes, the way his jaw was set. He was thinking the same thing she was, that Marcus wouldn't give up this easily. The next morning, when James, Damon's beta, appeared at breakfast with a grim expression, she knew her nightmares might not have been far from the truth. "We've got reports from the border patrols," James said quietly. "Marcus is gathering allies, other packs, some rogues. They're asking questions about our defenses." The blood drained from Lyra's face. "He's coming for me." "Let him come," Damon said, but she could hear the tension in his voice, the way his hands clenched on his coffee cup. "We'll be ready." Lyra wanted to believe him, but she knew Marcus better than anyone. He was patient, methodical. He never gave up on something he considered his. She thought she was safe, but maybe safety was just an illusion she'd been allowed to hold on to for a little while. The nightmares got worse after that. Even Damon's presence couldn't completely chase them away. Marcus was out there somewhere, planning, waiting. And sooner or later, he was going to make his move. The attack came at dawn 3 days later. Lyra woke to the sound of howls echoing across the territory. Not the morning calls of patrol wolves, but the harsh, aggressive calls of an assault. Her blood turned to ice as she recognized one howl among the others. Marcus. She threw on clothes and ran toward the main hall. Chaos had already erupted. Pack members rushed past her, some shifting mid-stride as they headed for the borders. The air filled with the sounds of transformation, bones cracking, muscle stretching, the distinctive rip of clothing. Damon stood at the center of it all, barking orders, his face set in hard lines. He'd already partially shifted, his canines extended, his eyes glowing with an inner light that marked him as alpha. "James, take the eastern flank. Sarah, get the non-fighters to the safe house." His eyes found hers across the room. "Lyra, you need to go with Sarah." "No." The word came out stronger than she felt. "This is because of me. I'm not hiding while people get hurt." "This is exactly why you need to hide." He crossed to her in quick strides, gripping her shoulders with hands that trembled slightly with the effort of maintaining control. "Marcus wants you. Don't make it easy for him." Another howl split the air. Closer this time. Through the windows she could see wolves pouring through the tree line. Too many of them, moving with the coordinated precision of a planned assault. "How many?" she asked. 40, maybe 50. James appeared at Damon's side. Already partially shifted, his voice rough. "They're hitting 3 points simultaneously. It's not random. Someone gave them our patrol schedules." Lyra's stomach dropped. Marcus had always been smart, but this level of planning meant he'd been watching them for weeks. Learning their patterns, waiting for the perfect moment. "I have to go." Damon's eyes met hers. She saw something that terrified her more than the attacking wolves. Uncertainty. He wasn't sure they could win this. "Stay with Sarah. Promise me." She wanted to promise. Wanted to let him go fight while she cowered in safety. But as another howl echoed and she caught sight of a familiar gray wolf prowling at the forest's edge, something inside her snapped. She'd spent 3 years running from Marcus. 3 years letting fear make her decisions. But watching Damon prepare to risk his life for her, seeing his pack ready to bleed because she'd brought danger to their door, she couldn't do it anymore. "I promise," she lied. Damon kissed her forehead quickly. His lips were warm and soft against her skin. Then he was gone, shifting as he hit the door. She watched his massive black wolf disappear into the fray, then turned to find Sarah reaching for her arm. Come on, Lyra. The safe house is underground, reinforced. You'll be protected there. Lyra let herself be led halfway across the compound. Her feet moved automatically while her mind raced. She could hear the battle escalating outside. Snarls, yelps of pain, the terrible crack of bone against bone. She broke away from Sarah near the garden. "I'm sorry," she told the startled healer, then ran in the opposite direction. She shifted as she hit the tree line. Her smaller brown wolf darting between the fighting pair scattered across the territory. The sounds of battle filled her ears, but she kept moving. Following Marcus's scent trail toward the center of the chaos, she found him near the eastern border, circling with 2 other wolves while Damon faced them alone. Blood matted Damon's dark fur. She could see he was favoring his left front leg. The 3 wolves had him surrounded, and Marcus was talking, still in wolf form, but the meaning clear in his posture and the way the others responded. They weren't trying to kill Damon. They were wearing him down, waiting for him to weaken so they could get past him. Marcus had never intended this to be a real battle. It was a distraction, a way to draw the pack's defenses away from their real target, away from her. Rage flooded through her. Not the helpless anger she'd carried for years, but something clean and fierce. Marcus had turned her into a weapon against people who'd shown her nothing but kindness. He was using her safety against them, counting on her, fear to keep her hidden while he hurt everyone she'd come to care about. She charged from the underbrush without warning, slamming into the nearest wolf, one of Marcus's allies, and sending him tumbling. The element of surprise let her tear a deep gash across his shoulder before he recovered enough to fight back. Damon's shock was palpable even in wolf form, but he didn't waste time questioning her appearance. With the odds evened, he launched himself at the second ally while Lyra faced the injured one. That left Marcus. He padded closer, his pale wolf form seeming to smile. When he shifted back to human form, standing naked and unashamed, his voice carried the same mocking tone she remembered from their worst fights. "There's my brave little wolf. I knew you'd come out eventually. You never could stand to see others suffer for your mistakes." Lyra shifted back as well, her hands clenched into fists. "The only mistake I made was staying with you as long as I did." "Oh, we both know that's not true." He circled her slowly. She was reminded of all the times he'd done this in their kitchen, their bedroom, anywhere he'd cornered her for another lecture about her failures. "You think these people care about you? You think their precious Alpha King sees you as anything more than a charity case?" The words hit exactly where he'd aimed them, at the insecurity she still carried. But instead of the usual crushing doubt, she felt something else. Certainty. "Maybe not," she said. "But he's never raised a hand to me, never told me I was worthless, never tried to kill me for having thoughts of my own." Marcus's expression darkened. "I made you strong. Everything you are is because I pushed you to be better. Everything I am is because I survived you." She saw the moment he decided words weren't working. His muscles tensed as he prepared to lunge, the same predatory focus she'd seen countless times before he'd struck her. But this time, she was ready. When he came at her, she didn't freeze, didn't cower. She shifted mid-dodge, letting her wolf's instincts take over. His grasping hands found only air. She spun and raked her claws across his ribs before dancing back out of reach. "You little..." He clutched the bleeding wounds, his face twisted with fury. The fight that followed wasn't elegant or heroic. It was desperate and vicious. 3 years of suppressed anger finally finding its outlet. But for the first time in her life, Lyra wasn't fighting just to survive. She was fighting to protect the life she'd built, the people who'd given her a chance to remember who she could be. When Damon appeared beside her, his human form now, blood on his knuckles from finishing off the last ally, Marcus finally seemed to understand that this wasn't going to end the way he'd planned. "This isn't over," he snarled, but he was backing away now, his bravado cracking. "You belong to me, Lyra. I'll never stop coming for you." "Then you'll die trying." The voice was Damon's, but the words came out like a promise carved in stone. "Because she's not alone anymore. She has a pack, she has a home, and she has me." Marcus looked between them. Lyra saw the exact moment he realized what Damon had just declared, what she'd been too afraid to acknowledge even to herself. "Mates," Marcus breathed, his expression twisted with something beyond rage. "You think you found your happy ending? He's an alpha, Lyra. They're all the same. Give him time, and he'll show you exactly what I showed you." "No," Lyra said quietly. "He won't, because he's not you." Marcus bared his teeth, but the sound of approaching wolves, Damon's pack, finished with the other attackers, made him step back. This isn't over. But as he retreated into the forest, Lyra knew it was. Not because Marcus wouldn't try again, but because she'd finally found something stronger than her fear of him. She'd found herself. The aftermath of the battle was a blur of medical treatment and damage assessment. 3 pack members had been injured, but none seriously. Marcus's assault had been more show than substance, meant to create chaos, not casualties. Still, it took hours to secure the borders and make sure all the attackers had retreated. Lyra spent most of that time in the medical wing, helping treat wounds, and trying not to think about what had happened in those final moments with Marcus. Her hands stayed busy cleaning cuts and applying bandages, but her mind kept circling back to Damon's declaration. "She has me." Eventually, the injured were stable. The borders were quiet. She found herself alone with Damon in his office, the weight of unspoken words hanging between them. "You lied to me," he said. He was sitting behind his desk, bandages visible under his torn shirt, but his eyes were steady on hers. "Yes, you could have been killed. So could you." She met his gaze without flinching. "So could James, Sarah, everyone else. Because of me. Because I brought this to your door." "That's not." "It is." She took a shaky breath. "I've been hiding behind your protection, letting other people fight my battles." But Marcus was right about one thing. I couldn't stand to see others hurt because of my choices. Damon was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer. "What I said out there about you having a pack, having me, I didn't ask if that's what you wanted. I just claimed it." Lyra's heart skipped. This was the conversation she'd been avoiding, the feelings she'd been too scared to examine. "And if I said it wasn't, then I'd step back, give you space to figure out what you do want." His hands clenched on the desk. "But I hope you won't." "Why?" "Because you're my mate." The words came out rough, like he'd been holding them back for weeks. "I've known since that first night, the way I felt when I found you, the need to protect you, to keep you close. It wasn't just sympathy for someone who'd been hurt. It was recognition." "I know," she whispered. His eyes widened. "You know, I've known for weeks. I was just too scared to admit it. Too scared you'd change your mind when you realized what a mess I am." She laughed, but it came out shaky. "Marcus spent 3 years telling me I was worthless, that no one else would ever want me. Hard to shake that overnight." "Lyra." Damon stood and came around the desk, stopping just close enough that she could feel his warmth. "You are the strongest person I've ever met. What you did today, standing up to him after everything he put you through, that took incredible courage. I was terrified. Courage isn't not being scared. It's being scared and doing what needs to be done anyway." His hand came up to cup her cheek. "You saved my life out there, probably saved several lives." She leaned into his touch, finally letting herself believe what she saw in his eyes. Not pity, not obligation, something deep and lasting. "So what happens now? Now you decide what you want. Not what Marcus told you to want. Not what you think I want to hear. What you want." Lyra looked at him, this man who'd taken her in when she had nothing, who'd shown her gentleness when she'd forgotten it existed, who'd fought for her even when she couldn't fight for herself. The choice should have been terrifying. After Marcus, trusting another alpha should have been impossible. But maybe that was the point. Damon had never demanded her trust. He'd earned it, day by day, moment by quiet moment. "I want you," she said. "I want this." I want to stop running and build something real." The smile that spread across his face was like sunrise after the longest night. "Are you sure?" Instead of answering with words, she rose on her toes and kissed him. It was soft at first, tentative. But when his arms came around her, she deepened it, pouring 3 years of loneliness and weeks of growing love into the connection. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Damon rested his forehead against hers. "The marking ceremony," he said. "We don't have to rush." "I want to," she interrupted. "Not because I'm afraid Marcus will come back, but because I'm not afraid anymore. Of him, of this, of taking up space in the world." She smiled. "Besides, someone needs to make sure you don't get yourself killed playing hero." He laughed. The sound was everything she'd never known she needed. Joy, warmth, the promise of better days ahead. "Then we do this right," he said. "With the pack, with ceremony, with the understanding that you're choosing this freely, and you can change your mind anytime." "I won't change my mind." "Good," he murmured, pulling her closer, "because I plan to spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret trusting me." As his lips found hers again, Lyra felt the last of her walls crumble. She was done running, done hiding, done letting fear make her decisions. Marcus had tried to break her. Instead, he'd forged her into someone strong enough to fight for the life she wanted. And what she wanted was standing right here, holding her like she was precious, promising her a future built on trust instead of fear. 3 nights later, under the light of a full moon, Lyra stood before the assembled pack, Damon beside her, his hand warm and steady in hers. The marking ceremony was simple. No elaborate rituals, just heartfelt promises spoken under starlight. "I choose you," she said, her voice carrying clearly in the still night air. "Not because I'm afraid, not because I need protecting, but because you've shown me what love actually looks like." When Damon marked her, his teeth gentle at her throat, she felt the mate bond snap into place, like coming home. The scent of pine and something uniquely him flooded her senses. Her own scent changed too, marking her as claimed, as protected, as loved, but more importantly, as chosen. The pack celebrated around them, but Lyra only had eyes for her mate, for the man who'd saved her life and then given her the space to save herself. "No regrets?" he asked softly. She looked around at the faces surrounding them, people who'd welcomed her, protected her, given her a chance to heal. Then she looked back at Damon, at the love and certainty in his dark eyes. None at all. Later, as the celebration wound down and pack members drifted back to their homes, Lyra and Damon walked to their favorite spot by the lake. The moon's reflection shimmered on the water's surface. The night was peaceful, full of promise. "What are you thinking about?" Damon asked. His arm was around her shoulders, her head resting against his chest. "How different everything is now. 3 months ago, I thought my story was over, that Marcus had broken something in me that could never be fixed. And now I know it was never broken, just sleeping." She tilted her head to look at him, waiting for someone to see it was still there. He pressed a kiss to the top of her head. "I love you, Lyra, exactly as you are." "I love you too." The words felt like freedom, like possibility, like the beginning of everything she'd never dared to dream. Above them, the moon shone down on 2 wolves who'd found their way home to each other, who'd learned that sometimes the best love stories begin with the worst endings, that healing was possible, that trust could be rebuilt, that even the most broken hearts could learn to love again. Lyra was finally home. And she was never running again.